Hey, welcome back to part 7. Back on John's Bronco 2 here. The last part you saw me wrapping up the rear axle, the 9-inch, the leaf spring, and all the little bells and whistles that went along with that. Super happy with the rear axle. It's definitely stout, just beef, just super strong. And it's going to function really good. So back to the front, I'm going to get these towers shaved down, get those looking a little bit more, I don't know what you call it. Basically going to cut off these big corners, get everything fully welded, probably add a couple gussets to it, and then slide the 44 back under there, get it linked back up, cycle it a few more times, just triple check everything one more time, and then can start making up the real links and basically start wrapping up the front next. All right, so John stopped over. I kind of had an idea of a mark, the blue line, but then over the phone I was like, go over there and double check it, and let's space it out from the bottom a little bit more and go slightly higher. So the second mark, the black marks, is what John came up with, which I think looks great. There's no need to have that big square crazy corner sticking out. So get those nipped off. I already nipped these sides off. Still fine tuning that plasma cutter. I've been cutting everything at 50 amp or 55, up to 60 amp now, 1/4 inch, and it cut really good. This is freehand. That's probably the straightest, best cut I've done yet. So nipped, and again this side I'm gonna add on and finish that angle. So let me get the other side cut and we'll keep moving on here. All right, you guys saw that one already. That's got a gusset on it. These towers, I mean, they're so stout as they are, and they're not sticking way above the frame. So I'm sure they were already way strong enough, but never hurts to add just a little bit more. So fully welded, gusseted, primed, painted, and then same for the driver's side. See that little piece there? I cut out a piece, filled that little area. You wouldn't know unless I told you. So I'm leaving this raw still. I might still have to move that one way or the other, I forget. I know it was kind of close, and I do have a little bit more room to move it if I want. So about to slide the axle back under and get it positioned, centered, full bump, etc. All right, everything is linked back up. Ories are back in. And I've just been triple checking everything. Did some new center lines, got everything centered up. Made sure my lower links were the same length. Currently as it sits, it's 33.5 center bolt, center bolt. Everything's center. So I think it's safe to say we can go ahead and weld up or make up some lower links, get those done. I know earlier in the video I mentioned about cutting this off and moving it again, but all my checks, I'm good. So maybe I'm thinking wrong that I already did that in the other video. So looking good. All right, moving on. I got the lower links taken off. Everything's been measured and measured and measured. These were my mock-up links from some scrap. So from end of tube, well, end of the bung is 27.5 inches each. So I'm just getting the actual 2-inch quarter wall DOM ready, and seeing how the bungs fit, and then take into account the measurement so I can make two 27.5-inch links bung to bung. And I always use my cold cut saw. Love this thing. Cuts through tube, square, whatever. Super easy. No sparks, no dust, and everything's pretty much barely lukewarm after you cut it. All right, both are cut. So the bung basically adds a 1/2 inch per side. So again, 27.5 inches total. Cut the tube at 26.5. So overall it's 27.5. Chamfered all 4 corners, cleaned up the edge. Just over a 1/2 inch from the edge. I put a mark on all 4, and then I'm going to drill through straight through. And I always do plug welds plus weld the bungs for extra strength. All right, and then I always double check. Always make sure that you have a left hand and a right hand per tube. One time, long time ago, I messed that up. Pretty much all the companies, the right hand is a solid bung, no marks, indentations on the nut or the bung. And then the left hand ones, there's usually always a little notch on the nuts and the line on the bung. So, but I always thread them in just to make sure. So, got my holes, plug welds, locations, ready to weld these up. All right, links are welded up. Plug welds, welded all the way around. Just kind of rigged this up real quick. I just wire brushed the ends and then Scotch-Brighted the tubes. Gonna prime and paint them. So that part's done, and then we'll touch up everything later on. All right, moving on. I got the track bar bracket fully welded on the outside, and then added added a gusset just to strengthen it up. I'll do all the welding on the bottom once the truck's together and the body's down, and I can lift everything up and hit everything from the bottom. So right now I took some more measurements. Got the axle centered again just to make sure I got the axle sitting at ride height roughly about 3 1/8 of the shaft, and then the bottom 7/8 is the bump. So about 3 1/8 ride height, roughly centered, laser, and then I got the track bar heims threaded in with enough room either direction, and I'm going to take my tape and measure from the inside to inside, and that'll be the length of the 1 1/4 250 wall tube I cut, and then get that part welded up. All right, same as those lower lengths. Got the 1.5 inch cut, chamfered the edges, cleaned it up. About to drill straight through on both ends again for the plug welds, and then we'll get the bungs welded in. All right, all welded up, primed, painted. Let this dry, get one more coat on it, and then we'll get in the truck and then keep moving on. I don't know if I talked about this yet. Earlier in the video series, I was talking about using a 2-inch quarter wall pre-bent tube, this right here, because I thought, like my Explorer, it would help with some clearance stuff. Well, I had a already made up tube from the lower link I was using, and it just was long enough to thread on and catch. But I put this straight tube, which is 1 3/4 120 wall, in this upper link spot just to kind of see, and I did all the flexing and full stuff, and there's just as much room, if not a tad more, just because it's not as big a diameter. So I think the plan is actually just going ahead and using a straight piece of 1 3/4 120 wall for the upper link. Save a bunch of weights, literally half the weight of the 2-inch tube, and there's plenty of room for it. All right, track bar is fully complete. NIC is threaded in, so it's going to mount that back up in the mounts. Had John pick up another piece of square tube, another 2x3 by 3/16 wall, just like the Crossmember tube. So this is going to be a dual purpose crossmember and attachment point for the TMR Atlas transfer case support mount, as well as a location to mount the future anti-wrap bar bushing and shackle. And it's going to serve as a nice platform to build a skid plate off of. So it's going to work out really nice. All right, so the main part of the TMR mount is it fits around the machined edge of the rear output housing. Comes extra long, so you can trim it and do whatever you need. And then the rest of the kit comes with a piece of DOM sleeve, bushings, through bolt and sleeve, and some mounting tabs. So they come round. Should have plenty of material if I want to square it off or angle it. So let's get this stuff kind of rolling. All right, so that's just all the parts in generic form. So first things first, I'm going to get this 2x3 located, and then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to drill holes through the frame rail and bolt it for now, and then everything will be fully welded when everything's done. So I'm going to get this handled first, because we need stuff in place to build off of. My Atlas doesn't have the sight tube. I mean, it's nice to have it, but it definitely adds one more thing for clearance, but we'll be fine, not a big deal. Use my 90-degree small little drill that we could drill from the top down, and then basically a pilot hole, and then drilled out to a 1/2 inch on the bench. So I got it sitting in place, lined up. I got the excess marked on both sides. So I'm going to trim that off, and then I'm going to end up doing the same thing that I did up here. I'll make a boltable flange on each side. That way everything's removable. All right, I kind of trimmed the corners off a little bit more to match those ones. And then I cut the midsection off, or out. This is how I began the make the removable section, just like that one. So I cut out 4 identical pieces of plate, tacked them all together, nice and square, so that way all the holes will be 100% matched. So I'm just doing a, I don't know, 3/8 or whatever the size that is, pilot hole, and then I'll drill larger. All right, so moving on, I took that, I had all these plates stacked together like I showed you just a few seconds ago, drilled them out to 7/16, did a rough shape on them. So now what I'm doing is I got all the welded sides that will be welded ground down and cleaned up. I got the frame side tubes square and centered on these. So I'm going to tack these in place, weld them up, and then I'll show you how we move on from here, or at least how I do it. All right, back on the truck, I got these brackets back on the frame. I have the bolt plate welded on the frame parts, and then I have the matched mirror plates bolted to those. I don't know if you can see there's 2 plates there. So now with these in place, I'll take a measurement from inside a plate to inside a plate and cut the center section accordingly. And then I'll clean up the edges and then center and tack this in place and then take it to the table, weld it up. And then that way I'll have everything, the exact measurements needed. And that part will be essentially done, except for being welded to the frame. I will weld the trans cross member and this cross member to the frame basically right at the end. That's why I like to use the 1/2-inch bolts welded to the frame, so everything's bolted in place while I'm building everything and mocking it up. And then at the very end, I can fully weld it. That way the body will be down, everything will be up in the air. A lot easier to weld upside down that way. All right, let me get this measured, get this center part cut, and then we'll move on to the TMR Atlas mount. I use my 2 off-road jacks, one on each side, to hold up each end as I center it, level it, and now they're tacked in place. So now I'll unbolt the center section, take it off, and weld the plates on fully, and keep moving on. All right, fully welded and bolted right back in. Perfect fit. Love it. All right, so the tabs provided from TMR are basically made to go onto a round tube. Everything that we're using is square, so trying to figure out a way, you know, what we're going to do here. So, came up with this. A little bit hot still. Anyway, I got it cut 90, so it'll sit on that square tube perfectly and center with the bracket. So I'm going to match the other one to that. All right, got everything fit and tacked. So everything's tacked in multiple places, so nothing should move. Then obviously I have to take those bushings out when I weld. But I think it turned out pretty damn good. I like it. And everything welded up. The other part's cooling. So you would put this part in first, and then I always bolt it up snug, and then I put the rest of the mount in. And then once everything's located 100%, you know, there's a little bit of play in all the bolt holes. So then we just kind of tighten everything up once everything's in place. I'm going to do one final bolt up, and then I'll pull everything back off, and so it can be primed and painted. All right, everything went right back together how it was mocked up, so that's cool. Definitely stout. It ain't going nowhere. And then again, I think I mentioned this before, this TMR mount, it's not really a, it's not bearing the weight of anything. The motor mounts and transmission mount has the whole weight of the drivetrain on it. This is kind of it's just a support. It's not a mount. So it's kind of, I don't want to say it's free floating, but it is in a way. Just gives a little bit more peace of mind. So I think the video is going to end here. I covered quite a bit of stuff in the front end here, the links, and now this secondary cross member. We're going to be getting into a whole bunch more stuff. The T-case and trans are going to be coming back out. The torque converter needs to go in, stuff like that. John wants to clean up and paint the trans and housing. These cross members need to be painted fully. Just kind of go as we go. And then we still have plating from You can see it now from here to at least this factory cross member, because remember when I did these spring hangers, I took the factory 90s out, or the 45s. So we're going to plate up to here for sure for now. That way we can get that supported again. Get everything painted up and done to this point, and then it's virtually going to be a roller. All right, so I'm going to end this video here. I believe this is episode 7, I think. It's hard to keep track. So a ton of progress on the truck. It's virtually almost a roller. The only thing, like I said, the upper third link, welding underneath, and then the rear axle. It's kind of hard. We can't weld the spring purchase to the axle yet, because being that it's leaf springs, we need to have the weight of the truck on the leaf spring so that everything can settle and see where the pinion wants to sit. So the rear axle, we're kind of have to wait on that for a minute. But all the hard stuff is almost done. We're getting very close to being able to put the body down and then start kind of buttoning this thing up. So anyway, thanks for watching, and keep your eye out for the next one.